From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Making the best of it.
The hurricane's gonna happen. It's just when.
How one big storm changed the harvest picture for some farmers in Texas. They're becoming a bigger problem for many growers, but how can you fight back against them? The latest information about soybean cyst nematode that could help you build yields. As USDA releases new projections about net farm income for the year.
Overall, cash receipts are forecast to fall in 2024.
The impact lower commodity prices are having on farmers' bottom lines. Right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Pioneer brand corn has the home field advantage with rigorous local testing to give you a winning season. Pioneer brand corn, your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Rook. Clinton is on assignment. With the reset in commodity markets, corn, soybean, and wheat prices are just off of four-year lows, and farmers are feeling the squeeze. As a result, USDA is projecting lower net farm income for farmers and ranchers in calendar year 2024. USDA releasing its latest forecast, putting farm and ranch profits at $140 billion. That's a decrease of $6.5 billion relative to 2023. Now, after adjusting for inflation, the decrease is even bigger at $10 billion. Putting this into perspective, that's 28% below the 2022 record high, but it would still be 15% above the 20-year average. USDA also forecasting net cash farm income at $154 billion, a decrease of $12 billion. Much of the decline in income is coming from lower cash receipts from the sale of agricultural commodities. The agency projecting a drop of $10 billion from last year, led by lower prices for corn and soybeans, while total animal and product receipts are an offset, up nearly $18 billion.
The result is that net farm income is forecast to decline $6.5 billion nominally. Overall, cash receipts are forecast to fall in 2024, and they are the largest source of income to the sector and often drive the trends that we see in net income. Corn receipts are forecast to decline 22%, or about $18 billion, inflation adjusted. And soybean receipts are forecast to decline 17%, or about $10 billion.
One area of relief is production expenses, and with easing inflation, USDA projects a decrease of $4.5 billion in that category. Direct government payments are also forecast to fall by $2 billion from 2023. Now, that's due in part to lower dairy margin coverage program payments and lower ad hoc disaster assistance. Happening right now, renewed concerns about moving ag products out of the U.S. Low water river conditions have led to several barges running aground along key stretches of the lower Mississippi River. The Coast Guard said in an email it's received reports and responded to several groundings over the last week, especially along the Greenville-Vicksburg sections of the lower Mississippi River. American Commercial Barge Line warned customers they should expect 1 to 2 day delays for river shipments due to reduced navigation space in certain areas. Right now, the water level along the river in Memphis is lower than it was last year at this time. And one analyst told me there's concern the lower water levels will make U.S. grain prices less competitive.
You know, if you look at the river projections, that Memphis gauge on for the Mississippi River scheduled to go down another 2 feet over the next 2 weeks. That's going to take us very close to those record low levels from last year. That's pushing barge freight up at a time that we've seen the futures market rally, Michelle, and in doing so, we're getting a little bit less competitive.
And it's getting more expensive to move barges carrying ag. It's reported rates for barges coming in from St. Louis are 65% higher than the 3-year average. I'll have more on the impact of all of this Monday morning on AgDay. And more signs of shifting weather patterns. This was the scene Thursday morning at Pikes Peak in Colorado. A strong cold front moving through the area, bringing snow to America's mountain. There were also some snowflakes reported in areas of Rocky Mountain National Park. Meanwhile, a heat dome remains firmly in place over the southwest and west coast. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht has more on that and chances for showers in the Midwest.
Temperature outlook between the 10th and the 14th, much like what we were discussing last week. They're expecting the heat to return 2/3 of the United States. Not much in the way of rainfall. So again, we'll visit what's going on with the drought monitor coming up in just a little bit. I want to show you that temperature outlook though, between again the 10th and the 14th. You got the warmer than average conditions. It's worth mentioning that the above average temperature is obviously lower now than what it is in the middle of summer. So while we're expecting a high confidence in above average temperatures, it's not that scorching heat with very dry air. That being said, this is going to be a stretch of some above average warmth and low chance of rain coming through the United States. In fact, the flooding potential for our Friday is isolated to us in Florida, Georgia, all along the Gulf Coast states on Friday. And as we get into Saturday, that's going to shift more to the East Coast. All having to do with an upper level low that's going to be churning back up in the north and the east, where we start to take in some of the Atlantic moisture. That's where the flooding potential comes into play, about 5 to 15%. And speaking of drought, it is continuing to spread across portions of southwest Oklahoma. The folks at Oklahoma Mesonet sharing the latest picture of the drought monitor along with this picture out of Oklahoma. They report some areas have gone over 90 days without even a 1/4 inch of rainfall. A 1/4 inch of rainfall. Obviously, hope they see some rain soon. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Something that could help dairy producers here at home. The U.S. Trade Representative's office announcing an agreement with Chile over commonly named cheeses and meat products. Ambassador Catherine Tai saying the agreement gives U.S. producers the opportunity to grow their businesses and to supply Chilean customers and consumers with specialty cheeses and meats using certain terms, including Parmesan, feta, cheddar, Gouda, provolone, and salami. Milk organizations calling it a landmark agreement, saying this safeguards the rights of U.S. cheese and meat producers to use certain common names. Now, the organization's urging the administration to continue efforts to push back against what it sees as the European Union's strategic monopolization of common names.
Yield Builders on AgDay is brought to you by Syngenta, where better yield is the better deal. Find out how to unleash your yield potential at syngentaus.com/better yield.
Farmers have various strategies at their fingertips to help build yields. One that's often overlooked by soybean growers, though, is soybean cyst nematode management. However, this is the most costly pest in soybeans at $1.5 billion annually. SCN often goes undetected in soybeans, but those fields can still have up to 30% yield loss without above ground symptoms. The first step in detection is soil testing, which is offered free in many states. Soybean producers can take 10 to 12 6-inch cores in their fields, and the optimal time is around harvest.
Any time will work, but the end of the season seems to be the most efficient. Now, as for how to sample, we recommend pulling soil from the top 6 inches. That's where the nematode lives. And finding, taking a sample across a representative area of the field where you're trying to identify the nematode, and just pull those using a normal soil sampling probe.
Once a producer determines they have SCN, he says they can take a 3-pronged approach to management, including rotating to non-host crops like corn.
The next thing you can do is use resistant varieties. There's 2 common resistance sources available. They're called Peking and PI 88788. This PI 88788 has been declining. It's been in use for many years and it's still somewhat effective, but we're recommending growers try to utilize that Peking resistance source more often in their rotations.
Vangel says the 3rd prong is using seed treatments, especially for higher levels of SCN, and then follow up with testing. The SCN Coalition has a profit checker on their website to calculate how much this pest is costing each operation. Most grain and livestock markets gave back some ground on Thursday. I'll have the latest on what's weighing on the minds of market watchers coming up. And later we head to Texas, where some farmers are having to take extra steps to bring in the harvest after being hit by a hurricane in the country. Corn and cattle down on Thursday with soybeans to the plus side. Mike Zuzolo, Global Commodity Analytics, joins us with analysis. Okay, a little break in the corn here, Mike, after about 4 up days. Routine profit taking or more?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. We still have that relationship where the wheat's leading the corn, if you ask me, Michelle. And I think the other thing more nuanced is we're noting more deliveries coming in, both corn and soft red wheat had over 200 contracts delivered here on day 4. Realizing that it's seller's option on delivery, I think we're hitting some price points now. Yesterday in the soybeans, today in the corn and wheat, we're starting to see those sellers who have physical stocks go ahead and let go of some of their deliverable supplies. So that probably weighed a little bit on the market sentiment as well.
Soybeans managed to eke out a little higher close. You think that market is just going to be well supported on dips here because China's buying and we have a few issues with weather in South America?
Yeah, I think in the short term it can be. I think what we've seen here in the big picture, though, is the beans can do it by themselves for a while, but they really need the wheat and the corn to come in and support them, especially when they look toppy. The other thing that we're hearing about, whispers, rumor mill, is that the Chinese are going to come in for more beans. That was being talked about. We also saw the canola market find a nice short covering rally today for the first day in 2 or 3 sessions after that anti-dumping duty news came out about China on Canadian canola.
And cattle had a tough down day on Thursday. Was that all technical selling or was it this lower cash trade again?
Well, the funds are typically technical related if they don't have fundamentals to offset them. In many cases, I think you have the feeder corn ratio still working against you in the feeder cattle market. Maybe more importantly is the fact that we just have not been able to find a really good cash bid now that summer grilling season is over. That, I think, Michelle, is going to translate into the market in the meats, looking more at Wall Street, looking more at economic data. And that has not been very positive this week. So I think we're starting to find some technical levels that we don't want to go through, especially the feeder cattle market. Looks kind of like a double top on the monthly chart, if you ask me at this stage.
Thanks for joining us, Mike Zuzolo with Global Commodity Analytics. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Let's look at the latest drought monitor. So again, seeing extreme, if not exceptional conditions back into Texas and Oklahoma. We saw that picture coming in. Anywhere you see the extreme to exceptional, obviously that is a drought that didn't just pop up overnight, but it has been a long time since we've seen substantial rain in those locations. That does include parts of Ohio, also into West Virginia, back down here into Tennessee, a few pockets where it is extreme, if not exceptionally dry. Now, also seeing the drought kind of spread in through parts of Indiana and the Midwest, as well as up into Wisconsin, while not officially in a drought. You see the little orange right there, the beige color, I should say. The beige is an official moderate drought. Anywhere you see the yellow, that is where it's abnormally dry, not officially a drought, but again, certainly when you look outside, you can see just how dry it really is. So again, drought conditions in and across the United States as we continue to see warmer than average conditions and lower chances of rain. I expect drought conditions to stay the same, possibly get worse in portions of the United States. Now, jet stream coming in for you Friday and Saturday. So there's the upper level low. And since the source region for this is back up into Canada, and not a lot of widespread moisture until we start to interact a little bit with some Atlantic moisture. That's when we may start to see some of those heavier showers come through the northeast. Otherwise, a situation that we've been talking about the last couple of days going into next week. So I take you ahead the next 6 to 7 days. Big ridge developing over the United States and even down here in the Gulf Coast states. Worth noting, because if you start to get this kind of dominant ridge, a lot of the low pressure systems that would bring us rainfall for a large portion of the United States, as we talked about before, that energy can't go through. It's got to go up and over. So that's why we're expecting above average temperatures as we get into next week, as well as low rain chances for nearly 2/3 of the United States. Precipitation forecast the next 24 hours. Won't see much out there. Now you got a cold front that's going to be moving through, bringing some rain, some spotty showers, but also some heavier downpours, more tropical in nature, back near the Gulf Coast states. We'll start off with Idaho, Nampa. A sunny, high around 95 degrees, low of 57. Georgia, rain, high around 76 degrees, low of 66. And finally, Amble, Michigan. Mostly cloudy, high of 64, low of 44.
Fears Deere is unveiling a new plug-and-play device for farmers. The FieldView Drive 2.0 can be used to connect, monitor, and record activities across different farm equipment types and brands. Bayer says the product provides more processing power, data storage, and infield connection stability than the previous version. The company says hundreds of farmers have already field tested the device, and it will start shipping the new hardware in the U.S. starting early next year. Every farmer knows how labor-intensive picking up rocks out of the field can be. One of the worst jobs I had as a kid on the farm. Now there's technology to help with that. TerraClear has developed a system that uses drones to map out fields and those pesky rocks. It uses high-resolution imagery and specialized machine learning. Then its skid-steer deployed smart implement covers the field, picking up the rocks. TerraClear says an operator can clear anywhere from 30 to 50 acres per hour with the machinery. The company's CEO estimates that people picking up rocks in a field miss anywhere from 60 to 70% of them, since buried rocks are continually being exposed by rain and other forces such as snow melt and wind. Now, the startup hopes to have a full commercial launch of its business model next year. Still ahead, it's harvest time in Texas, but it hasn't been smooth sailing for farmers impacted by Hurricane Beryl. What it's taking to bring in the crop in the country. Southeast Texas is still picking up the pieces after Hurricane Beryl came ashore in July. Now farmers in the area are harvesting crops knocked down by the storm. The Texas Farm Bureau visited with 2 growers along the Texas coast who are rising from the dirt.
We live on the Gulf Coast. This is the chance you take down here. We've always had summer storms, tropical rains. The hurricane's gonna happen. It's just when. My name is Jonathan Krennick. Farm in Wharton County, live in Egypt, Texas. Farm with my father, my brother. We farm corn, cotton, rice, soybeans, wheat, carinata, and rice.
My name is Tim Krennick. I'm a 3rd-generation farmer. I've been farming since 1975.
Since '03, we've grown it to 4,600 acres. We're taking on a whole lot more risk.
Hurricane Beryl came in. At first, we thought it was going to be mediocre storm.
We thought it was going into Corpus. We were like, well, but they all moved north. Lo and behold, that's what happened, came right in. Eyewall probably came right here on 59, not a few miles from us. It was more than a Category 1 than I thought.
We had 90-something mile in our winds. The wind took all our corn and blew it down and took it to the ground.
This hurricane was unique because it came in so early. Typically, we can get the corn out, and then we're always worried about the cotton with the hurricane. Never the hurricane coming before the corn was even ready. Corn is very important in this operation. When the price was higher, cotton was king. Now that the prices are changing, it's going to corn. Every once in a while, a thunderstorm blows up, and you'll blow a field down, but never to this magnitude, not every field. It took the corn down, just blew it whatever direction.
If you run an east and west rows in this area, you can pick it up pretty well. When we got north and south rows, we have to sometimes go one way.
The crop is leaning this way, you go into it. If you come this way, it just drives over top of it. The corn will roll underneath the rollers. So when it rolls underneath the roller, it won't actually pull it in. So then you have to go to the end of the field, drive back to the other end, and come back into it. So it's just constant all day, driving, deadheading one way, coming back into the crop. It takes twice as much time to harvest. The speed is the big thing. Normally you just go back and forth. It's easy, standing corn, 5.5, 6 miles an hour. Now it's 3.8, 4.2, knocking off a mile and a half an hour on a 13-hour day. It adds up.
This is a corn sweeper, and what it does is not pick, everybody thinks it's gonna pick the corn up. It's not gonna pick the corn up, but it keeps it flowing in the head where you don't have to be stopping and getting out and unclogging.
The harvest is going as well as planned due to the circumstances, but we have another 1,000 acres of our own corn, and then the 2 neighbors yet to go. So we're looking at another 12 days, 14 days, which we're used to getting it out a whole lot faster than that. The better corn all hit the ground. The weight of the ear took the corn down. If the corn wasn't that great, it's still standing.
We were going to have a pretty good corn crop in most areas where we had the rain. We are losing maybe 15 to 20% of our yield.
This will pay the bills. We'll get this crop in and go to the next one. Everything takes you down. Hurricane takes you down. Time harvesting takes you down. You just have to be optimistic and hope that next year's a better year.
And our thanks to the Texas Farm Bureau for that story. Well, that's all the time we have for this morning. Thanks for watching. For all of us at AgDay, I'm Michelle Rook. You have yourself a great day out in farm country.